This video is sponsored by Babbel, the #1 language learning app in the world with more than 10 million subscriptions worldwide. Babbel is the best app in the market right now, providing award-winning courses in Spanish, French, German, Italian, and many more, becoming fluent in a language and have been using Babbel on a daily basis, learning through listening, reading, writing, and speaking activities. I am currently studying French, Spanish, Italian, Danish, and Norwegian on the app. What I love about Babbel is that, unlike any other language learning apps, the courses have been created by genuine speakers of the languages and don't run via an algorithm or computer-generated material. And furthermore, the course content prepares a learner for real-life situations. There are no adverts, which is a huge bonus, and it has been proven by university studies that just 15 hours of learning on Babbel is the equivalent of studying a full semester of college. Head to the link in the description to get up to 65% off a Babbel subscription for a limited time only. Thank you to Babbel for sponsoring this video. The Khamar-Daban incident is a case which has received little coverage from the media, not only in Russia and Kazakhstan, but also on an international scale. It has many eerie similarities to arguably the most famous mystery of them all, the Dyatlov Pass incident, which occurred in the Ural Mountains of Russia in 1959, where 9 experienced hikers perished in unexplained circumstances. Khamar-Daban is a mountain range located in Buryatia, southern Siberia. It was August of 1993, and 41-year-old Lyudmila Korovina arrived at the train station in Irkutsk and greeted with a small group of hikers she was to lead into the mountains on a Category 4 climb spanning approximately 50 miles or 80 kilometers. They were 24-year-old Tatiana Filipenko, 16-year-old Victoria Zalasova, known as Vika, Alexander Krysin, known to his friends as Sasha, who was aged 23, 19-year-old Denis Shvachkin, Valentina Utachenko, known as Valia, aged 17, and Timur Bapanov, aged 15. All of whom had arrived from Petropavlovsk, Kazakh, and they intended on journeying towards their destination, Slyudianka, with the highest peak en route being 2,396 metres. The group set off on the 2nd of August and battled horrendous conditions, including torrential rain and snow caused by a Mongolian cyclone. Fortunately, all 7 of the hikers were experienced in the field and had no issues with travelling in such adverse weather. 3 days later, they had almost reached the peak of Mount Tritrans, where a wooden shelter stood. The wind, snow, rain and mist provided next to no visibility, and with a pine forest 2.5 miles or 4 kilometres down the slope, it would have seemed the wise decision to descend and take shelter. However, for unknown reasons, the group did not seek protection. At 11 a.m. on the 5th of August, whilst planning to head for the trees after a night of snowfall, the hikers were startled when suddenly one of their comrades, Sasha Krysin, the strongest person in the group, began to foam at the mouth with blood trickling from his ears. His health quickly deteriorated and he passed away soon after. Unlike the Dyatlov Pass mystery, one of the hikers, Valia Utachenko, recalled the horrifying details of Sasha's death and what occurred next. The group had been collecting dried golden root for most of the day and had been gathering their camping gear. Once Sasha passed away, the group descended into chaos and panic. Denis then began acting erratically, hiding behind stones and fleeing not far from the camp. Vika and Timur were presumed to have also ran from the group, who had been packing up their tent. The trio reportedly rolled on the ground and took off their clothes and also scratched at their throats. Tatiana repeatedly hit her head against the surrounding stones, and Lyudmila Korovina also recorded in reports as Lyudmila Ivanovna succumbed to a heart attack and died after having told the group to descend the slope as she stayed by Sasha's side. By this point, it was Lyudmila and Sasha who had lost their lives, and Valia attempted to take the reins and lead the group downhill towards the forest. However, the other hikers too quickly died, foaming at the mouth and bleeding from the ears and nose. Moments before his death, Denis urged Valia to crawl down the slope towards the trees to save herself. Valentina Utachenko was the sole survivor of the incident and provided authorities with an eyewitness account of what happened that day. After watching her fellow hikers perish almost simultaneously in bizarre circumstances, she darted down the slope towards the tree line, haunted by what she had seen. She took her sleeping bag and slept in the forest overnight, ascending to where the 6 bodies lay the next morning, making sure to close the eyes of the dead. Noticing a trail of the power lines above, she descended towards the Snetsnaya River, almost unconscious with the symptoms of a heavy cold. Valentina managed to find a string of abandoned towers where she sheltered along the stream. She was spotted by Ukrainian canoeists on the 9th of August, where she was ultimately rescued and taken to Slyudyanka. For many days, she could not speak. Investigators only managed to get to the scene approximately 1 month later due to the harsh elements, and once the bodies, which had little clothing and were absent of shoes and socks, were recovered, autopsies were carried out. The hikers' lungs were bruised, and there were signs of protein deficiency, thought to have been caused due to undereating. The official causes of death were confirmed as hypothermia, which was further solidified by the evidence of paradoxical undressing and exhaustion from a spontaneous force. However, many questions remained unanswered. What caused the bleeding from the ears was not determined, and how was it possible that all 6 of the deceased hikers shared the protein deficiency? Valia remembered that the group ate well, therefore this aspect is a mystery. A major theory in the deaths of the Dyatlov group in 1959 included the infrasound theory, which causes bizarre and unpredictable behaviour, effects on the inner ear, disorientation, nausea and resonances within the inner organs, and many speculate whether this actually occurred in this incident. Why did they not complete their journey to the mountain's peak? Did they just lose track of time? Was Lyudmila's trail map inaccurate? They were no more than half an hour's hike away from the peak, although the severe rain no doubt played a part in their decision to temporarily halt their climb. Also, how did Valentina survive the incident? Lyudmila, Tatiana, Vika, Sasha, Denis and Timur were all buried in zinc coffins. In Petropavlovsk, almost the entire 200,000-strong city attended the funerals to say farewell. A few days afterwards, a journalist accused Lyudmila Korovina of the hikers' deaths, although no solid evidence supports the theory, and relatives of the deceased do not believe she was involved in the tragedy. Valentina has struggled to come to terms with what she saw and refuses to speak about the incident. Although it is regarded by some as solved, there are mysterious aspects of the case which has left many scratching their heads. For example, how did such a healthy group of young people perish at low altitude in the summer? Senior tourism lifeguard Valery Tatarnikov, who searched for Korovina's group, stated, "For me, the death of the Korovintsy is a big mystery." Talking of the mountain, he said it is not a desert, not polar ice. If you are an experienced tourist like Korovina was, if you are in the forest in the summer, then it is impossible to die of the cold. 20 minutes to build a fire and you're saved. Valentina Utachenko, who fought against the elements, said in a statement about the incident in a chilling recollection, August 5th, 10 a.m, Kristen came and said that they were wet and freezing. It was snowing, no landmarks were visible. We collected our backpacks and began to go down the slope. We walked about 10 metres. Kristen began to fall. They began to pick him up. He fell again. Korovina remained beside him. She gave the rest orders to descend, but almost immediately she stopped the group and asked someone to come to her. Tatiana took out an awning and the others took cover under it. I went up to Korovina. Sasha's eyes were huge, indifferent look. Korovina felt for a pulse and said that his heart was not beating. She asked me to drag Vika down. I went up to her and she bit me. I dragged her to the rest of the group. Tatiana began banging her head against the stones. Dennis hid behind the stones and climbed into the sleeping bag. She crawled up to Korovina, but she did not breathe. I tried to raise Timur. When I realised that no one was moving, I began to go down to the trees. I got dressed and lay down in my sleeping bag, covered with an awning. In the morning, I went up, saw Tatiana on the stones, Dennis, Timur, Vika. Above, Sasha and Korovina. None of them rose again. This case is described in the media as unsolved, despite perhaps an obvious conclusion. It is baffling that a case which appears incredibly similar to the Dyatlov Pass incident has not been talked about. However, the more light given to the case, possibly more answers can be found.